right, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. We are here live streaming on April 4th, wonderful Monday, talking about fantasy football. Long time no see. It's been a while, hasn't it? I've had some time to recharge, kind of get my bearings, set for the 2022 fantasy football season. I'm just here on this wonderful Monday. And I want to talk some fantasy football with you guys. I'm sure you guys, are chomping at the bit to get to this upcoming season. It's going to be exciting to say the very least. But that's pretty much the agenda for today. Going to be answering questions, going to be drafting some teams, kind of giving you guys my perspective as to how things are kind of shifting in the direction as we approach 2022. Obviously, the NFL draft is still to come. There's many things still to come prior to the season beginning. I'm sure there'll be trades. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a lot of smoke surrounding DK Metcalf, AJ Brown as of late. So, we'll just have to wait and see what comes of it. Either way, a couple things that I wanted to do, a couple additions. Now, first and foremost, if anything goes haywire today, don't be surprised. I am working on a new computer. In the past, I've had a computer that was quite a piece of work. I'm working on a new one, so maybe all the settings for my stream haven't been optimized per se, but I'm going to do my best to kind of bring you guys the best show I could possibly bring. We're going to be here for the next couple hours talking fantasy football, answering questions. What I wanted to add to the stream screen, which I haven't done in the past or haven't done for a while, specifically is, that's not the button. It's this button exactly. I wanted to go ahead and kind of give you guys an idea as to whose question I'm specifically answering, where I am in the chat. A lot of you guys in here, Smokey the Cat, Alfredo, Freddy, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Justin, thank you for coming, guys. I appreciate you guys coming out here, ready to talk fantasy football and, just keeping it. Oh, damn, Freddy's already ready with the donations. Again, guys, you absolutely do not have to donate. I appreciate the support and all of that. I'm just here to answer questions. Obviously, we'll be doing some drafts via Underdog Fantasy in just a little bit. The best place to do, yourself a favor, go ahead, sign up there, and, do live drafts against other people. It's the best way to learn how to draft going into this upcoming season. So all of that, pretty much ready to go. David Ramos, I see you in the chat. How you doing? Hope you're doing well, my friend. Justin says, first overall pick this season. Who you got? I think it's pretty normalized that Jonathan Taylor should probably be the number one overall pick. I don't think there's any argument against that being the case, considering how great he was last year, the improvements the team is going to obviously see based on the fact that they have Matt Ryan at the quarterback position. They had less of a liability than a guy like Carson Wentz. And then obviously their offensive line was banged up last year, guys. They had 9 different starting offensive linemen last year. If they get healthy and they get into a correct position, Jonathan Taylor should be unleashed. Let's see. So anyway, whatever questions you guys got, send them my way. I'll be here. Glad you guys were able to make it. Let's see here. Thoughts on an RB start? Seems wide receiver has enough depth. No, listen, I've always been someone that believes starting at least 2 running backs in your first 3 rounds is doing yourself a favor. Now, obviously, there have been scenarios in which you go ahead and you draft a running back early and, they don't pan out. Injury, etc. There's different variables that could go ahead and impede the success of a player in a given season. But I often believe that getting yourself 2 running backs early, it does you a lot of favors, especially considering, there aren't that many top tier running backs. There's a separation when you talk about RB1s to 2s, and after you get to that RB3 range, you're really hoping to find, success there. Obviously, it's not impossible. Cordero Patterson, Leonard Fournette, these are examples of players that you can find, in later rounds that are going to be able to help carry your team. So regardless of what you do in those early rounds, there's always the potential of hitting a jackpot in the given lottery that could go ahead and help you. But starting triple RB, I suppose it's okay if depends what your scoring format is too. Yes, there's a lot of wide receiver depth, but if your roster positions have let's say not just 2 starting wide receiver positions, there's 3, and you're playing in a full PPR, and perhaps you're not grabbing the running backs that have that receiving upside, it could be difficult to kind of roll into that direction. Let's see here. I'm picking Henry first overall. Don't care. Yeah, no, Ray. That honestly is not another opinion that's unpopular. I think he's probably the number 2 guy. assuming everyone most likely is going to be somewhat avoiding Christian McCaffrey based on the last 2 seasons. Again, I think he's only played, 7 or 8 games that he's played that he hasn't left with an injury since the beginning of the 2020 season. A lot of people are worried about that potential and the concern for his injury. So yeah, no, I don't blame you going after Derrick Henry. I think his injury was kind of a fluke. Obviously, I mean, this is a man that has carried the ball 400 plus times each of the last. Was it 2020? Yeah, 2020, 2019, and a little bit of the tail end of 2018. The guy's just been kind of dominating. I mean, luckily for Henry, the first 2 years he was in the league, DeMarco Murray really, carried the backfield there in Tennessee. I mean, they ran DeMarco Murray into the ground, but obviously Henry has just been benefiting from the fact that he's been able to sit, learn, and now take over as the best back in the league. All right, let's see here. Christian McCaffrey is a 3rd rounder. No. Gals, as I can feel the anger, I can feel the pain that you may be suffering because you perhaps drafted McCaffrey in seasons past. I'll be honest. Listen, Christian McCaffrey is definitely not a 3rd rounder in any sort of capacity. He's obviously a top tier player. And to be honest, he'll probably go 3rd overall, not even 3rd round at the running back position, because we know what his upside is. We know what he's capable of. I mean, the history is shown. This is a guy that is capable of putting up 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving yard season. He's comfortable around the goal line. They're not going to pretty much pull him away from the goal line and not let him score those respective touchdowns. Obviously, he set the record and broke his own. I think he broke Matt Forte's record for the most receptions by a running back in a season. He has the 3rd greatest all-time running back performance in fantasy football history. So, I mean, we know what he's capable of. I wouldn't be surprised if McCaffrey shows up and is the number 1 in 2022. But, that's it's just a matter of whether or not he's healthy, and it's tough to gauge those kind of things, considering we don't really have an inside opinion, or we're not getting much information on how he's looking health wise. And the thing about football, one play could be your last, and that's just the fact. And it is unfortunate, but that's just how it works. Let's see here. How are you feeling about Javonte Williams? You know what? That's a fantastic question. I'm feeling great about Javonte Williams. I think Javonte Williams, I was hyped about him last year. Obviously, the unbelievable season that Melvin Gordon put together, considering, last season, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, they split touches pretty much 50-50, down the middle. And yes, there was a game where Melvin Gordon missed and allowed Javonte Williams to show all of us what he's capable of doing by himself in the backfield. I think he had 26 points in that. I think it was a Sunday or Monday game against the Kansas City Chiefs. He dominated, right? So Javonte Williams with an improved quarterback. Obviously, I think it's Nathaniel Hackett, the former offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. He is now the Denver Broncos head coach. Out in Green Bay in the last couple of years, they've definitely not been shy feeding their respective running backs the ball. Javonte Williams is very easily, in my opinion, a top. I think he's probably top 7, 8 running back going into this upcoming season, assuming Melvin Gordon doesn't re-sign with that team. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. Alpha says Return of the King. Appreciate that. One of the best movies of all time, by the way. Should I keep Mitchell or Diggs? That's Elijah Mitchell or Stephon Diggs. That's a really good question. I guess it's a matter of rush. What do you have to keep him for? Is it just a free keep, or do you... Because there's been a lot of keeper leagues that I've participated in, or I've heard other people participate in, where depending on where you drafted him the year before, they may cost you an actual pick in your respective draft. If he's a free pick and you get to keep one of them for X amount of years to come, I mean, I think doing yourself a favor, and also depends on the scoring format. I think Diggs is where I'm leaning right now, based on the role of Deebo Samuel in that backfield alone. Definitely hurting Mitchell. But yeah, for right now, I'm thinking Diggs has got himself a pretty good spot there. How do you think Tyreek will play with Tua? I think Tyreek Hill will be used wisely. A lot of people talk about Tua saying, yeah, he can't throw. He doesn't have the deep ball accuracy. These are narratives that I don't 100% believe to be true. The stats speak differently about it. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I think, the new head coach of the Miami Dolphins, former offensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, he's going to have a lot to do with Tyreek Hill, whether that's using him out of the backfield as a rusher. Wouldn't be a surprise to me. Bringing over a little bit of that Deebo Samuel and letting Tyreek Hill just make defenders miss, do what he does best. I mean, this is a guy that used to be a punt returner. He can make people miss in the open field. You hand him off the ball in the backfield after emotions, I mean, full steam ahead. It's going to be very difficult to stop him. I think he'll be able to get it done. As to what kind of wide receiver he's going to be, definitely not as good as he was with the with the Kansas City Chiefs, excuse me. But I still think he'll be of, a top tier quality. What happened to Kelsey? Kelsey's Kelsey. Even though he got dethroned as the number one overall tight end in fantasy, he's still going to be in that conversation of being the first tight end off the board based on his overall consistency and the fact that there's no Tyreek Hill. And I mean, do not forget, guys, Tyreek Hill's coming off of a season in which he saw a season high or career high, if I'm not mistaken, of targets and receptions. I think he almost had, it was 101 receptions, if I'm not mistaken. That kind of opportunity going to, the other receiving targets, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, they don't really impose much of a threat on Travis Kelce, who is their number one receiving option there. He's just going to, take another step forward and probably continue his legendary career as being a monster. Cooper Kupp, mid-second round selection. That's a really interesting question, Justin. In my opinion, he should be going in the first. Cooper Kupp season, yes, though it's an outlier based on what we've seen in seasons past, and a lot of people are going to expect regression. I still think he's going to be a viable enough wide receiver that he's probably a first-round pick easily, not even close, especially in a full PPR. In a full PPR, he's going to be going like, let's be honest, I haven't drafted a team in quite some time. So whatever we do a little bit later on today, drafting-wise, it's going to be a little bit new to me. I'm going to be learning with you guys. But Cooper Kupp in a full PPR should be going in the first round. Middle of the first round. I'm not talking about second round. Second round is when you should be getting other wide receivers, other respective prospects. Like, I think probably Devontae Adams is a second round pick based on the fact that he's no longer with Aaron Rodgers. I think Tyreek Hill's probably a second round pick now. We're just going to have to wait and see how everything transpires and where the league's going. Says, where do you see Deonte Johnson, Big Ben, and Juju gone? All right, well, here's the thing. You guys know how much I love Deontay Johnson. I mean, all of last season, I was on the Deontay Johnson train, and I was continuing to just, bang the table and say Deontay Johnson must be selected. He had a great season overall. Great to see that he was able to at least improve from seasons past, despite how bad Big Ben was playing last year. That being said, is Mitchell Trubisky an upgrade? I don't think it's an upgrade in any capacity. I think, could it be considered a downgrade? That's my concern. If Mitchell Trubisky ends up being a downgrade, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, they could be in a little bit of trouble. But for right now, I'm thinking Deontay Johnson's probably still, if Mitchell Trubisky could give him the funneled targets like he once did with Allen Robinson in Chicago, he could still be a top 15 wide receiver. Taylor, Eckler, Javonte, Christian McCaffrey, Najee Harris, Kamara. Is that a good tier 1 of RBs? I think Derrick Henry's missing. To say the very least. I think Derrick Henry is certainly missing. Now, if we're talking about full PPR, I still think there's a conversation for Derrick Henry to be brought up there because prior to his injury, Derrick Henry was on pace to set career highs in receptions and receiving yards in his career in 2021. So don't, let that kind of slip your mind. He was getting targeted a lot out of the backfield, something that he was working on last offseason and preparing for his year, and obviously was able to perform well because of that. Thoughts on Dalvin Cook? He should be fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with Dalvin Cook. I think the entire offense is predicated around running the ball. Obviously, they're going to have a shift in the offensive coordinator position there. Kevin O'Connell, former offensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Rams, he goes over to the Minnesota Vikings, becomes their new head coach. If you're thinking about a branch off of the McVay tree, everything wants to begin with running the ball and then play action, setting it up. Obviously, they'll get Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, their respective targets, and, they'll get their work. But I think Dalvin Cook's going to be perfectly fine. He'll still be a top 12 running back. He's just got to stay healthy. That's always been his problem. When you draft Dalvin Cook in the first or second round, you've always had to go ahead and accompany that with a 10th round selection of Alexander Mattison just in case, because if a season-ending injury is to happen, you don't want to be, out of luck. And a lot of people will fight you over that selection, which is always tough. Pick one, Drew, MCU or Star Wars. I prefer the Marvel Cinematic Universe by a pretty wide margin, I believe. I think Star Wars, it has its greatness, but I think the MCU cannot be messed with in that regard. I think Disney did a smart idea of buying the MCU and letting Feige take that thing over. I got JT in a keeper in the first round. For the second round, I have a wide receiver one, maybe AJ Brown or Hill. RB2 Chubb or Swift. Would appreciate any thoughts on the draft strategy in a PPR. Thanks much. I think it really depends, Josh, as to where the rest of your league is keeping. Like, if you're keeping Jonathan Taylor, how many other running backs are being kept early on? Because I think that kind of poses the conversation of where you want to go. Because if a lot of other running backs, like if Najee Harris, I don't know, let's think of another, Dalvin Cook, like we just mentioned, Alvin Kamara, if those other running backs are also being kept and it's immediately like just all those guys are off the board, there may be a conversation where you want to go ahead and grab that RB2. I think Deandre Swift is going to be incredible this year, to say the very least. Just prior to his season-ending injury, I mean, it wasn't really season-ending, but it kind of was for me or for many of us who had him in fantasy, because by the time we even got him back, he didn't really even do much. I think a running back is not a bad idea, but they've got to have PPR upside, and I think Swift kind of presents that. Now, if you want to go with a safer play of just going for a receiver, I don't know. I mean, AJ Brown is kind of in a tricky position. I know they get Robert Woods over there, but Ryan Tannehill didn't look great, last year without Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. Obviously, Arthur Smith is now the head coach of the Falcons. He left last season. So if he's going to look any similar than he did, I don't know if I trust an AJ Brown there. Tyreek Hill, I think he's probably the safest pick there. You take a Tyreek Hill in the second, there's no problem. But I think maybe going for that risky DeAndre Swift selection in the second, in a full PPR, I think he's significantly better than Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is not going to get any receiving work, and Kareem Hunt coming back into this offense, it's going to take a lot of opportunities away from him like we've seen in the past. Let's see here. Did you already go through your top 10 picks? I have not gone through my top 10 picks. Thank you for asking. But, I mean, to be honest, I don't even think I have a solidified top 10 picks at this point. Like, I have players in mind that I really like, and I think are obviously based on what other people kind of perceive them in terms of value at are going to go in the first round. But I don't know if I technically have a top 10 until we get past the NFL draft. Like, I think the draft is going to make a lot of a difference, especially if a running back is selected to a team that we're not expecting, right? Like, there's always a potential of a running back losing value because, let's say, for example, the Carolina Panthers decide, you know what, we're going to draft a running back in the first round. What if they go crazy like that, right? They won't. In the sixth pick, they're going to take a quarterback. But, like, let's say they bring in another running back. That could hurt the value of McCaffrey, right? So there's a lot of things there that are going to be shooken up. Obviously, offensive line being drafted could help a respective running back. Receivers could help quarterbacks, or in the other end, could end up hurting other receiving prospects. There's a lot to be kind of, I guess, there's a lot of information to be absorbed after the draft takes place. But for right now, I mean, I'm still pretty confident with the players that are at, their current positions. And I think I have an idea as to who should go when and, what kind of value they currently hold. One QB league, deep keeper, okay, half PPR. Should I offer Burrow, Higgins? Let me go. Everyone can see this, right? Okay, it's from Ryan. Burrow and Higgins for Jamar Chase. You're offering. Oh, look. Here's the thing. When we talk about trades in a vacuum, it is really hard for me to objectively say yes or no, especially considering I don't know the rest of your team. Like, if you're giving away Burrow, who's your next best quarterback? If you're going after Jamar Chase in a one QB league, like, it probably is smart to go ahead and offload some of these players. But I mean, Burrow is, he could very easily be your QB1 of the future, but maybe you have somebody else that's just as good. Maybe you have Herbert as well. So, I wouldn't mind it. It just depends on what else you have. There's so many variables to kind of keep in mind. Amon St. Brown, one of the biggest sleepers next year. I think he's quite polarizing, to be totally honest. I think there's a little bit of a mix. Amon-Ra St. Brown carried a lot of teams to a championship purely. I mean, he was unbelievable. In the last, I think, 6 to 8 weeks of the season, he was the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy, only behind Cooper Kupp. He had the same, fantasy point per game average and a half PPR as Devontae Adams. I mean, he was nuclear. But the problem is there was no DeAndre Swift and there was no TJ Hawkinson. Now this team adds DJ Chark. There are more competitive targets that may be, kind of pulled away from him. The guy, throughout that span of time was getting about 10 targets per game, literally, like on a consistent basis. And if he's not able to pull that, is he still as viable as a fantasy prospect? That's what we have to kind of keep in mind. Some people will avoid him because they're worried about his targets not being there. And some people who obviously were treated well by his performances late last season will remember that and draft him accordingly. But we'll have to wait and see. It's a very polarizing topic because, again, we don't know if that target share is going to continue to be there for him. Let's talk my Bucks, Brady and Evans combo. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brady's coming off of his best statistical season outside of the one in which he had 50-plus passing touchdowns with Randy Moss. That season almost, was a Super Bowl win against the Giants. Unfortunately, did not happen for them. But Mike Evans, easily top 12 wide receiver. I mean, especially considering Chris Godwin might be slow to come back. He's coming off of an ACL injury, if we remember. There is no Antonio Brown. Potential that Gronk doesn't come back. Leonard Fournette's going to be there. That's fine. He's going to get his receptions. We're not worried about that. But I think Mike Evans is going to continue to be as good as he's been throughout his entire career, consistent. And with Brady, with no AB in the lineup, this man was dominating like 15 points per week last season throughout that stretch of time prior to that New Orleans game in which he went down with a hamstring injury. Let's see here. Which team would Breece Hall be drafted to? I mean, to be honest, who needs a running back? Like, there are teams that are like one piece away that need a running back. That there's also teams that may not think that they need a running back immediately, but might go for it. Like, I just want to see running backs be drafted to teams that need them for fantasy purposes. I could care less about where teams go. I mean, again, guys, I'm a Los Angeles Rams fan. I mean, as long as my Rams are doing what they're doing, I'm not worried, right? We got our chip. They could draft whoever they want. But the whole purpose of this upcoming NFL draft is hoping that the prospects, these receivers and these running backs, go to the right homes that they're going to have immediate success. So if a running back gets drafted to the Atlanta Falcons and is able to, outperform Cordero and Mike Davis, great. He can be an automatic start. If a running back gets drafted to the New York Jets and is able to beat out Michael Carter and Ty Johnson, perfect. Those aren't that, difficult of, competitive backfields. But if a running back gets drafted to the Los Angeles Chargers, we will have a absolute meltdown. If a running back gets drafted to a team that already has a 3-down respective back, it's gonna scare me. So I'm just crossing my fingers and nothing like that ever takes place. But it might. We'll just have to wait and see. Let's see here. Cordero Patterson with Ridley out. I mean, listen, Cordero Patterson was the entire offense last year. Obviously, late in the season, especially during the fantasy playoffs, many of us experienced a little bit of a downturn from his overall productivity. Had to do with the fact that he was beat up. If you guys remember, midway through the season, Thursday Night Football against the New England Patriots, this is a guy that did not play because he was already dealing with injuries. He has not really, carried the ball often in his career. He's been a special teams player for the last 10 plus years, though being a first round pick in the early 2010s to the Minnesota Vikings as a wide receiver. He's been a special teams guy. So the fact that this guy was able to run the ball as well as he was able to, the fact that this offense really has nobody. Like you mentioned, no Calvin Ridley. There's no Matt Ryan. I mean, I don't know where they're going to go with the ball except for Cordero Patterson, but I expect them to go ahead and draft some receivers, maybe a running back in this draft, and maybe that'll go ahead and throw a wrench in the Cordero Patterson equation, but we'll see. Sutton was a disappointment last year. Where do you see him going this year with Russ throwing him the ball? I mean, listen, I think Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton can both very easily be top 15 wide receivers overall. I mean, if we look at what Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf have been able to accomplish over the last 3 seasons here. I mean, Tyler Lockett has been a wide receiver, top 15 in each of the last 4 seasons. DK Metcalf, obviously, in 2020 was the number 6 overall wide receiver and a half PPR. In 2021, he was the number 12 overall wide receiver and a half PPR, despite a little bit of regression from the season prior. If you're associated with Russell Wilson, you're going to be a monster. Now, Cortland Sutton is going to serve in that, DK Metcalf role, while Jerry Jeudy, who played, predominantly from the slot position, I think it was like 76% of his overall offense came from the slot last year in Denver. He will be the Tyler Lockett. Now, Tim Patrick obviously is going to get his, job done every now and then. He is a fantasy stud in the flex, as you guys all remember, but I think both of them could very easily be stud prospects going forward. And to be honest, I mean, if you go look at how Cortland Sutton played last season, in the 3 games where he was targeted the most, he was fantastic. There were 3 games where he was targeted like 9 or 10 plus times. In all of those games, he was putting up like 15 to 20 fantasy points. The rest of the season, 4 targets, 3 targets, 2 targets, 6 targets, and there weren't the greatest overall passes. I mean, let's think about who was throwing him the ball. Teddy Bridgewater, sure, he's been a veteran, he's traveled, but him and Drew Lock are not Russell Wilson. You can combine them both, and they wouldn't even be close to this talent that Russell Wilson has. So yeah, I think these guys are going to have a definite uptick in terms of value going into 2022. Good to see you back. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Listen, guys, I'm glad to be here. You know, it's all about just sharing my opinions, answering questions, trying to entertain you guys as much as I possibly can. We'll get into a draft in just a bit, probably in like 4 minutes here after I catch up on a couple questions. I'll hop into a draft, kind of answer questions while drafting and kind of give you guys some perspective. Where do we stand on Trey Sermon? Trey Sermon is done. By all intents and purposes, Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, he made it, you know, abundantly clear that the running back position for the San Francisco 49ers is for Elijah Mitchell and for Deebo Samuel to run going forward. And that's what it's going to be. Now, unfortunately, Trey Sermon, you know, who was a, you know, relatively, I think, was he a 3rd round pick in the 2021 NFL draft? You know, I think he was at Ohio State. Not a bad running back, but for all intents and purposes, he's probably not going to get much playing time. This offseason, they re-signed Jeff Wilson. So, Trey Sermon, if you're playing in a dynasty, I guess you hold him and maybe an injury takes place that gives him potential value. But really, even in the games that he played last season, he wasn't very efficient either. Are you higher on Swift this year for a particular reason? Yeah, I mean, look, I think Deandre Swift, if you, let me see if I can find the stat. One moment. Deandre Swift, if I'm not mistaken, I want to get this precisely accurate. Prior to him going down with an injury, he was unreal last year. And if you guys remember the narrative that surrounded the Detroit Lions last season, it was they're not going to be able to do anything in games. They're not going to be able to run the ball. They're not going to commit to the run. They're going to only pass because they're going to be down 30 points per game because Jared Goff's their quarterback. And that was the narrative, right? And I even, started drinking the Kool-Aid. But let me find this stat here. All right. 2021, weeks 1 through 11, prior to his injury against the Chicago Bears on Thanksgiving Thursday. Obviously, shoulder injury separated, but weeks 1 through 11 prior to that injury, he was averaging 15.8 half PPR fantasy points per game. He was the number 7 overall running back in fantasy throughout that time, and he was dominant. I mean, he was averaging 97 total yards of offense, 5.3 receptions per game, and 6.7 targets per game, scoring 0.6 touchdowns. I mean, this offense is only getting better. I think everyone there is buying in on Dan Campbell, the entire experiment of what exactly they're doing in Detroit. And I mean, he's a Georgia running back. He's only going to get better. And the fact that he's been able to get himself so acclimated in the receiving game, regardless of what Jamal Williams is going to do, Swift is just, he's going to be a monster. Let's see here. Okay, where do you see Lamar ranked among quarterbacks next year? Listen, Lamar was incredible in 2021. Now, obviously, the injury that he sustained definitely slowed him down. But let's put this in perspective. If you go and see the passing attempts that the Baltimore Ravens had last season in comparison to seasons past, and the efficiency of which Lamar Jackson was playing with the extra passing attempts he was getting per game, I think they're going to begin to, especially Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator, he's going to kind of build this offense around kind of throwing the ball a little bit more. I think there's more precedent to go ahead and do that. Obviously, the injuries to their respective running backs, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, led them away from running the ball. But Lamar Jackson, he's a guaranteed 1,000-yard rusher. He could probably get himself 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns. The ability to expand upon his passing game because he's getting more opportunity to do so only helps his fantasy value. I don't care if he throws interceptions, which typically he doesn't. He's been quite an efficient quarterback in that regard. But as long as he gets more opportunity to throw the ball, yards, touchdowns, they will come. So, I mean, overall, Lamar Jackson, if I have to put, look, it's tough to put a number on it because, like, I look at this upcoming season, Josh Allen, automatic number 1. I think my number 2 quarterback is Justin Herbert. Then after that, I'm beginning to, it's a shuffle. It's a matter of, what happens in this draft? Does Aaron Rodgers end up getting receivers? Is Tom Brady going to look like himself? Because Tom Brady last year, I mean, this is a, whew, there's a lot of guys to, obviously Patrick Mahomes is still in that conversation, but is he going to be good enough without Tyreek? There's so many things to kind of go over. Matthew Stafford was incredible. I mean, he literally put up a 39 passing touchdown season, which I think tied his career best in all the years that he had in Detroit. The first year that he was with Cooper Kupp, they were able to just go off. So I think Lamar is certainly going to be, especially in a 4-point per passing touchdown format, most likely a guy that's drafted as a top. I mean, there's still Dak Prescott, man. There's still Burrow. He'll probably be a top 8, quarterback. As to where I have him right now, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, kind of determine based on if they want to add any other receiving options. Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, that's really all he needs. But if they add another piece there, it could be helpful. Andrew, is there any scenario where you draft Zeke for your fantasy team? No. I don't think so. To be honest, I'm sitting here and I can honestly say I'm not really interested in Ezekiel Elliott. Obviously, he dealt with a little bit of a knee injury last season. That is certainly something in my mind. But again, that is I'm still worried, guys. I don't know if Zeke still has it in the tank. Dude, I think he is signed. I think his contract goes to like 2026. Like, this guy is running out of gas early. Tony Pollard has looked great. I mean, let's not forget, Tony Pollard was drafted to specifically be the replacement of Zeke. Because if you guys remember that offseason where Tony Pollard was specifically drafted, Zeke was out in Cabo. He wanted a new contract. They're like, all right, we don't need you. We're just going to play with Tony Pollard. Honestly, they should have. They would have been able to keep Amari Cooper, but now they have an extra $20 million per year on the books that they got to deal with Zeke. But honestly, unless the price is just perfect, I don't know if I want to draft Zeke. I mean, that being said, let's not forget the Dallas Cowboys. They were the highest scoring team in the National Football League last year. I think they were averaging like 31.2 points per game. If they can continue that level of success offensively, the touchdowns are going to be there for Zeke. So regardless of the fact that he's rushing for 40 yards on 12 carries and, will get himself his 3 or 4 receptions for 30 yards, he'll still be able to be a sufficient enough, running back with a touchdown. But we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see. What else we got here? Is Deandre Swift in your top 10 or in the top 5? I think he's probably closer to he's probably in the middle. I mean, he might be 7. I don't know, 7 or 8. I mean, he's in that conversation, guys. He really is. DeAndre Swift's going to be incredible. Thank you for the sermon answer. No problem. Do you think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get the ball? He's going to ball out this season? I want to hope so. I mean, he carried me to a couple championships. I want to hope that he really is going to dominate. But it's tough to see that as a potential. Like, prior to TJ Hawkinson going down with an injury, the guy was like, I think there was a 5-game streak there where he was getting 8 to 10 targets per game. So with that eliminated out of the lineup with TJ Hawkinson's injury, of course, we were going to see Amon-Ra St. Brown get opportunities. So if TJ Hawkinson back in the lineup diminishes that with, like I just mentioned, weeks 1 through 11, DeAndre Swift was averaging 6.7 targets per game. If you add that back in the lineup, Amon-Ra St. Brown might not get the ball as much, which could be a little bit of a trouble there. Hey, Andrew, I'm the number 11 overall pick. Should I go running back? Should I go running back to back? I'm thinking like Mixon and Javonte, like Javonte Williams from the Denver Broncos. Yep. If they'll be available, I think they should be. Again, another Mixon, Javonte. I think these are top 12 guys. I mean, Mixon was incredible last year. His touchdown, I think he had 15 of them. Woo, insane. Or go RB and wide receiver if JT or Chase is available. I don't know what kind of league you're playing in that Jonathan Taylor or Jamar Chase could be available at the 11th overall selection. Maybe you're playing in a Superflex league where quarterback may be just completely swiped off the board, as it should be. And we'll go ahead and we'll do a Superflex draft a little bit later on with Underdog Fantasy in just a bit here. But as of right now, I'm thinking it's a pretty good chance here that we're in a position where you probably end up going Mixon and Javonte Williams and being cool with it. How do you feel about Kelsey's value? I think he should be considered the number 1 overall tight end going into this upcoming season. Probably will end up being a 2nd round pick in many instances. I anticipate. Hey, Andrew, what's your top 5 tight ends in this upcoming year? And does Adams help Waller? Does Adams help Waller? That's interesting. I think Adams hurts Renfro, but does it help Waller? That's something I got to ponder on for a little bit. I mean, it's going to be tough to really understand what that offense is going to be. I think Waller's still going to be a top 5 tight end. I mean, it'll probably be in no particular order. Kelsey, Mark Andrews for sure. I think Darren Waller, George Kittle. Those are 4 for sure guys that are going to be in that top 5 conversation. The guys that are vying for that number 5 spot are either Kyle Pitts with Marcus Mariota, my apologies, and Dalton Schultz. Those are the 2 guys that could probably jump into that top 5 conversation. Probably. Now, if they don't, then we'll have to wait and see who the next, 1-year wonder is. But for right now, I'm thinking that's the case. Kyle Pitts versus Dalton Schultz. Kyle Pitts with Marcus Mariota, not a bad thing. Marcus liked to, feed the ball to Delaney Walker in seasons past. I mean, the one game that he played with the Las Vegas Raiders as their quarterback against the Chargers in 2020, he fed Darren Waller the ball. So he's not afraid of throwing the ball to his respective tight end. That'll help Pitts. But I think Dak Prescott throwing the ball, Dalton Schultz, that'll become more of a normalized thing in that offense considering there's no Amari Cooper. Hey, Andrew, looking forward to year 5 with you half a decade. Yeah, I mean, listen, this will be year 5, huh? I'm doing fantasy football content, started in 2018. Damn, it's crazy. Glad to see you, Thomas. Thank you for coming out. Strange question. I'm British, so I don't really know anyone who plays fantasy football. I played for 7 years and I love it. Any advice on starting up a new league, finding members, platforms for that kind of league? You know what, to be honest, I think there are multiple places to go. I mean, look, I think it depends if you want to know the people that you're playing with. If you want to make friends, that's a completely different thing. But there are a bunch of places to play fantasy football. I mean, really, there are. You can go to like the fantasy football Reddit in general, and I'm sure there's people playing in leagues. There's other sites that you can go and sign up blindly and just play against other people. But if you're trying to actually mesh with the community, there might be a way to just, I mean, in the description of my video, usually I have a Discord server. If you are familiar with Discord, you can go there. There are people that are always posting leagues that people want them to join. If you want, you can join there, make a relationship with anybody there, make friends, see if there's something to be found there. But otherwise, yeah, there's a lot of sites to go after there and find potential thing. Okay, let's see here. What I wanted to do really quickly is, first and foremost, while there's 76 of you in here, 79 just updated, I want to thank you guys for being here. Again, this is the first, piece of content. I don't know if it's considered content. It's just like a normal, chill, relaxed conversation. Thank you guys for being here, supporting the channel, as you guys do. I want to go ahead and draft a couple teams via Underdog Fantasy. If you guys are not aware, just want to go ahead and remind you. Underdog Fantasy, it's a website. If you guys haven't checked them out, there's a link down in the description. You can play fantasy football there via best ball drafts. If you're not trying to, get into a scenario where you have to set your lineups every single week and you want to go ahead and play, and you could even start by drafting today via Underdog Fantasy and just trying to practice how to go ahead and build rosters, build teams, and how respective ADPs, when running backs are coming off the board, when is the first tight end taking. There are many different things that you can go ahead, practice there on Underdog Fantasy. That's how I'm going to basically use it today. If you go ahead and sign up and use promo code Andrew, ANDREW, as you can see on screen, Underdog Fantasy is willing to match up to $100 of your first deposit. Again, if you drop 100, they'll go ahead and match 100. A lot of fun to be had there. So let's go ahead. We'll venture off to Underdog Fantasy. There's going to be a ball that flies towards the screen. I, of course, will still be answering questions via the chat, but there's going to be a ball that flies towards the screen. Do not be afraid. I know many people... oh, that's not it. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead. You know what I have to actually do? I have to pull this off screen because that shouldn't be there. There we go. I was about to say, why is my OBS there? But hey, all is well. So here's the dealio. There are 2 respective drafts at this current moment that are being... Wait, actually, you know what I want to do? I want to go ahead and see. Yeah, we'll just leave it like that. Okay, cool. So there are 2 respective drafts at this current moment in time via Underdog Fantasy that basically are, in my, I guess, if I was to categorize it, I would see it as a way to practice for next season. But also in the same vein, you could still win money. You could still win prizes. Like, for example, this Superflex draft here. Specifically, if I go ahead and move Andrew over a little bit here, just to give you some perspective, right? It's a Superflex draft, $10 entry. You can decide whether you want to do 30 seconds per pick or 8 hours per pick. So if you don't want to draft, if you don't have time to sit here for a lot of rounds, to be totally honest, I mean, if you want to go check the roster construction, there's 12 bench spots on top of 1 quarterback, 1 super flex, 1 regular flex, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, etc. There's a way to, go ahead and do that. It'll ping you, you hop in, make your draft selection, next. Otherwise, what I'm going to be doing, hopping into a 30-second draft, for those of you who are interested, again, if you want to join me, I mean, I'm going to hop into one right now. But again, if you want to join me, I'll be in here, and I'll be drafting respectively. Hopefully this thing gets filled up. Do I want... Oh, wow, it's already filled. Okay, so that was instantaneous. Look, this is how many people are out here trying to play fantasy. I'm the 5th overall pick. We'll figure out what I want to do once I get there. I need to move Andrew back to the middle of the screen here via OBS, and then we'll lock that into place. All right, let me go ahead and check out this chat. Don't forget to click the like button. Thank you very much, Keith. I appreciate you reminding everyone to do so. What is your ideal draft strategy for this year? Tommy, that's a great question. If I told you that I'm probably sticking with the same strategy that I've had in years past, would you be surprised? I typically want to get running backs. That's what I want to do, especially, I mean, like, how many teams are in this respective draft? We have ourselves, I think it's a 12-team league here. It's a 12-team league. So it's a normal, respective league. Typically, especially at the number 5 position, I mean, it's between getting a running back or getting Cooper Kupp. That's really the one or two. But I typically want to go ahead and draft a running back, especially at number 5, because by the time the draft comes back to me, the chances of all of these stud running backs being taken is relatively high. If that's going to be the case, I don't want to be in trouble of, having to draft or reluctantly draft a running back that I don't really see as a second round value in that position. But this is a super flex. I completely forgot. Quarterback is going to fly off the board. This is a super flex. Okay, I'll do a regular draft after this. Strategy has changed. Reminder, in a super flex league, you can start 2 quarterbacks. So this actually, this makes it interesting. The quarterback position will probably fly off the board relatively quickly, and I'm actually someone who plays their main home league as a super flex. I anticipate it most likely being a scenario. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to move. Let's move that a little bit. Let's do like right there. All right. I'm probably someone that wants to have a quarterback early, but they're all damn. Oh my God. Again, for all intents and purposes, this is the first draft that I'm doing via Superflex, via Underdog, in the last couple weeks here. So I didn't know what to expect. I actually completely forgot. But if I don't take a quarterback here, I may be in a little bit of trouble. So of the available guys, to be totally honest, I'm looking at what's available. I'm probably going with Dak Prescott. Let's just try something here, okay? We're going to test something out. I actually want to see what a Superflex draft even looks like in this regard. There's also other drafts. There's the rookies versus sophomores. You can go ahead and draft players right now that aren't even on respective teams. Players that are going to be in this upcoming, year's 2022 NFL draft. Go ahead and potentially grab them. So quarterback just flies off the board at every single position, huh? That is very interesting. This is something I did not. This is interesting. Let's go over to the chat while my pick is coming up. Does Metcalf have at least wide receiver 2 value with Locke? Freddie, you know what? I suppose he does, because really he kind of has to. He's too talented to be denied. You know what I mean? I think he's too talented to be denied. So potentially he does have immense value in that regard. Wide receiver 2, maybe lower end, because I don't know if Drew Lock is the real deal. They keep talking like they're confident that Drew Lock will get the job done. I don't even know if DK Metcalf's going to be with the Seahawks in a couple weeks. That's just a worry. Is it wrong to go running back, wide receiver in that order? Greg, I don't know if there's any wrong strategy. I honestly, I've seen strategies of all sorts work. So I couldn't objectively say that X strategy is bad unless you're playing in a one quarterback league and you're taking a quarterback in the first round or a tight end in the first round. Those are the objective mistakes. But as a fantasy football connoisseur yourself, I'm sure you know, as long as you get wide receivers or running backs, you should be fine. So no, I do not believe going RB, wide receiver, RB is a bad idea. Again, like I mentioned earlier, getting 2 running backs in your first 3 selections in a respective, one quarterback league is perfectly fine. Now, I'm sitting here in a 2 quarterback league. I've taken Dak Prescott mainly because I've been peer pressured into doing so. But I mean, really the only running backs that have been taken are the top 4, which consensus wise makes sense, right? Taylor, Henry, Eckler, McCaffrey, whatever order you want to go ahead and draft them in, that's your prerogative, but seems pretty normal. As for the quarterback position, it is beginning to obviously melt away a little bit, but I'm not too, everyone's going quarterback, like Aaron Rodgers at 2.5. I think I'm just going to, let me see. If I don't take a quarterback here, technically, I'd be stuck with like Kirk Cousins as my quarterback too later on. I'm not too mad about that, to be honest. So I'm probably leaning towards grabbing a running back here if I can. Obviously, I should be able to, considering what is available. Justin Jefferson just went before me. Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams still on the board. I need a running back. I don't have one yet. So it's a matter of who do I want to select in this upcoming season's draft. There's a lot of talented running backs here available. You know what? It's very interesting as to what the heck is available. I'm thinking I'm probably going Dalvin Cook. I know he dealt with a lot of injuries last year. Let's grab Dalvin Cook real quick. Let's see what happens here. Again, this is a very preliminary draft, to say the very least. Like, I don't even have a solidified rankings in my head. Now, you may be thinking, Andrew, you're a little late to the party if you don't have solidified rankings in your head, but I'm just being totally honest. It's April, and we still got 5 months till the start of the season, so there's a little bit of time for me to, brush up on some things. Damn, Deshaun Watson going at 210, huh? That's interesting. Very, very interesting. All right, let's see what's the chat. Wow, Watson is still on the board. Yeah, look, it's just a matter of what people expect Watson to end up being. Is he going to be the starting quarterback, or is he going to be suspended for the whole season? These are the questions. These are truly the questions. Are you concerned over Watson's upside with the Browns being a run-heavy offense? To be honest, I'm not too concerned about Watson until I figure out whether or not he's going to actually play, because I don't know if he's going to. So we'll have to see. Tommy, those are very nice words. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're able to enjoy the stream and the content I'm putting forth. Thoughts on James Washington? If Gallup is out for a little bit. Yeah, look, Gallup tore his ACL, I think he scored a touchdown while tearing his ACL, which is crazy, but it was late last season against the Arizona Cardinals. The chances of James Washington presenting himself as a wide receiver option early in fantasy if Gallup is out, I'm not too interested in it, to be totally honest, because I'm thinking to myself, the number 2 receiving option until Gallup returns is going to be Dalton Schultz. There were times last year where Dalton Schultz was the number 1 option on that offense, right? So there are many instances where you kind of have to look at it and think to yourself, well, okay, you know what? How many quarterbacks have been taken? I'm actually curious. So Kirk Cousins is still here. I'm going to risk it. I'm just going to, I'm going to risk it a little bit. Wow, Joe Mixon actually came back to me. Hold up. Debo's on the board. My goodness, man. Superflex leagues are insanity. They're actually just crazy. I like Alvin Kamara. I like him a lot. But the problem with Alvin Kamara is that Drew Brees doesn't exist any longer. And that Sean Payton is no longer there. Now, if they're going to use him differently, then by all means, that's cool. But for right now, I'll just go ahead. I'll draft myself some Joe Mixon. I have Mixon and I have Cook. We'll see what happens, okay? Back to the questions. B-Van, welcome. Nice to see you here. Let's see here. What's your top 5 wide receivers? Cooper Kupp is obviously number 1. I think number 2, in my opinion, considering the trades of Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, I think number 2, pretty solid in my eyes, is Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson should be the second wide receiver off of every draft board this upcoming season. Number 3, if Ja'Marr Chase continues to build, Ja'Marr Chase would probably come off the board as well as the next receiver. And then we're in a conversation of probably having Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams at like 4 or 5 in either order, Debo at like 6. I don't know if Debo is going to be the same. I mean, I've been hearing some rumblings that he's complaining about not getting a new contract after having one of the greatest seasons of all time. He's like, trade me, blah, blah. There's a lot of rumblings. I don't know if it's, if it's true. A lot of the rumors that we hear aren't always to be true, but well, we'll have to wait and see, kind of test it out. Wow. People are taking tight ends third round tight end. Interesting. Kirk Cousins, who was a guy that I wanted, taken. So if I'm going to have a quarterback, it'll most likely end up being Tua, Tannehill, or Matt Ryan, which I'm not mad at, considering I got 2 top 6, 7, 8 running backs with Mixon and Cook. Not mad at it. And again, like we've talked about in the past, guys, wide receiver has a bunch of depth. Like Keenan Allen, Mike Evans still being there. If Mike Evans wants to come back, if he wants to come home in the 4th round, I won't be mad at that in any capacity. Pedro says, what's your number 1 sleeper player that no one is talking about? I mean, that's a really good question. I don't know if I have quote unquote sleeper players that no one's because I don't know what people are talking about. I don't keep my ear to the ground in that capacity. I just kind of stick to my Deandre Swift is a 4th round pick in this draft. Alvin Kamara is still there. This is craziness. I love it though. I love it. In terms of the potential of a sleeper, okay, a sleeper is someone that no one's really expecting. Honestly, I would say we kind of have to wait until the draft, because based on how rookie wide receivers, especially in the last 2 years with Jefferson and Claypool in 2020, and in 2021, Waddle and Ja'Marr Chase, Monroe St. Brown going nuclear at the end. Wide receivers that are rookies could kind of go under the radar. Ian, great suggestion there. Michael Pittman is getting pretty slept on. Yes, but that's the thing. Because you mentioned it, Ian, you're not the only one that believes that. And the only other, there are other people that are looking at that and thinking to themselves, yes, automatically Michael Pittman is going to be on my team because he's being slept on. But to be honest, I think he's kind of gaining value as the offseason goes. So eventually, by the time we get to July, August, September, he will probably be, selected relatively early because of the hype that builds around him, which is, to be honest, it's justified. You look at what, Matt Ryan was able to do with Julio and Ridley, it's justified the value there. All right, let me see here. Do I want to take T. Higgins or do I want to take Mike Evans here? Because both these guys are absolute monsters. I think T. Higgins is very easily a top 12 wide receiver this season, and I honestly think so was Mike Evans. The running back position, still got a lot of value there. Quarterback, Matt Ryan's my only hope. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Mike Evans here, and we're just going to cross our fingers and, hope that everything goes right, the correct direction here. As of right now, again, Superflex League, very interesting how everything is turning out. It's more of like a case study as, kind of learning what the heck is going on in some of these leagues. But it's pretty fun so far. Rank these guys. Gallup, Pittman, or Devontae Parker. Okay, great question. Right now, blindly, if I was to rank them all three, Devontae Parker's last. I think he's a great talent. I don't see Devontae Parker going to, some next level area. Considering the fact that I don't even know who the offensive coordinator is for the New England Patriots. Of course, many of you know Josh McDaniels, a longtime offensive coordinator with Brady in New England. He is now the current head coach of the Raiders, which is, of course, why everyone is so excited about the potential of the Raiders. Does this guy have 3 quarterbacks on his roster? My goodness. Maybe that guy's AFK. I don't know what's going on away from keyboard, if those of you who are not familiar with AFK. But anyway, if I had to pick those 3, Devontae Parker's last, then it's Gallup or Pittman. Depending on how Gallup's health is going into this upcoming season, if he is able to participate in many of the off-season, workouts, I'll feel more confident having him in the conversation of above Pittman. But if we get to a position where he's obviously, he just had his injury, what was it, in December, almost January? If we're in a situation where he's not ready, then Michael Pittman's the easy answer, because number one wide receivers with Matt Ryan are going to get over 100 targets, and they're going to get quality targets at that. And though, Frank Wright's offense in Indianapolis has been very much so run dependent and predicated on the run over the last 3 years. I mean, not even 3 years, it's 4 years actually. Since 2018, there is not another team in the National Football League that have given their running backs more opportunity than the Indianapolis Colts. Many of you wonder why Jonathan Taylor is being taken as early as he is. It's because of the value that they have there, because they give their running backs so much opportunity. So at this point, regardless, I think Matt Ryan's certainly going to help Michael Pittman. If Gallup's not ready to go, then I think Pittman for sure is number one there. But maybe I'm sleeping on Parker. I don't know. I mean, Parker really hasn't had a fair share. The last time he really had a fair share was when Ryan Fitzpatrick was the quarterback, late 2019. They went on a streak there. But outside of that, with Tua and the injuries that Devontae Parker has sustained in his career, it's just tough to keep him in that position. Now, I'm thinking quarterback has ran away from me. Oh, I was going to take Fournette. I swear I was going to take him. Fournette is like the last tier of that running back. I'm surprised it even took them this long to take him off the board. He's the last tier of that running back that I really wanted a piece of. So be it. Not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. I'll go ahead. I'll grab myself Keenan Allen and keep it moving. Anyway, let's see here. Any questions? With Josh McDaniels being the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, what are your thoughts? Players in the draft and avoid. Okay, listen. Josh McDaniels, okay? Another stat that I want to mention. Like I mentioned, since 2018, the Indianapolis Colts have given their running backs the most opportunities amongst all teams. But close behind them is the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are, even with Brady in years past, have given their respective teams' running backs a lot of opportunity. And I know in 2020, there was a bit of a dip, obviously because of what Cam Newton was able to do on the ground there, taking away a lot of rushing touchdowns, a lot of rushing opportunities from his respective running backs. Kind of was a little bit of a dip there, but this team, Josh McDaniels knows that he should be running the ball. So Josh Jacobs is a great RB2 option. I think Davante Adams is going to get his fair share. Is he going to get 170 targets? Probably not. I think 145 to 150 is pretty fair. Darren Waller should be a stud. Hunter, dude, this offense is kind of stacked, and it's stacked to a point where it's scary, because when you have a very viable tight end, it's very difficult for that offense to also technically feed a wide receiver 2 option. Like, let's think about it. Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Kansas City Chiefs offense really hasn't had a wide receiver 2 do anything, because it's hard to give multiple players over 100 plus targets. You can't get a third receiving option that's going to be a viable piece all season long when you got 2 guys commanding targets. So when we talk about offenses like Baltimore with Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown had like 140 targets. Mark Andrews had over 100 catches. Like, it's going to be hard to get another wide receiver in that conversation. Mac Jones taken. Dude, I was literally ready to snipe him. And people are just all over it. Look, I respect these people. They know what they're doing. They've been around the mountain here. I'm waiting to probably take this quarterback here, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, went off top of there. In regards to the Raiders offense, they should be very, very good. I think Derek Carr, who has shown himself to be a decent fantasy quarterback, not the best. He's not a guy that's putting up top 12 numbers every week, but I think with the addition of Davante Adams, it's going to pose the conversation of him being a top 12, and he very easily could. So I think the entire offense as a whole is going to benefit. Hunter Renfrow may be the guy that ends up being the odd man out in that conversation, but we'll just have to wait and see. Bill says, I've won back-to-back titles. Let's go. Bill, congratulations. Glad I could help in any way, if I ended up helping at all. Appreciate it. Fournette, Gibson, and Swift. The order would go Fournette, Gibson, Swift. I'm thinking, it's my turn to draft. All right, so when do I draft next? It won't be for a little while here. Does everybody have 2 quarterbacks? Everybody has 2 quarterbacks except for me. So I'm thinking, do I want to take a tight end right now? Probably not. I think we'll just wait on tight end for a little bit here. Looking at wide receiver, there's a lot of value there, but I think I'm just going to go ahead, take a running back here. I like me some David Montgomery at all times. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But as for Fournette, Gibson, Swift, Gibson's last place for me in that position. Mainly because J.D. McKissic is coming back to the Washington. Actually, it's not even the Washington football team anymore. It's the Washington Commanders. That's going to take a little while to get used to. But that being said, Gibson is last. Swift and Fournette. I could see it going either way. I think I just barely like Leonard Fournette more. Mainly because there is no Ronald Jones. And with the absence of Ronald Jones and Deandre Swift still having to deal with the fact that there is a Jamal Williams in that backfield, and obviously one offense being a lot more talented than the other, going to find far more success down in the red zone than the other, I'd go with Fournette. So Fournette, Swift, and Antonio Gibson in that order. Now, that might not be the most popular opinion. Maybe people think Swift is the best out of that group. So be it. I mean, if you're playing a full PPR, I still think that Leonard Fournette could very easily compete in that regard. Is Montgomery a stud this year? Look, the only reason I really do like Montgomery is because there is no Tariq Cohen. Like, you guys have seen it in the last couple years. With no Tariq Cohen in this offense, on top of the fact that they let Damian Williams go, the former Kansas City Chiefs running back, he is no longer on that team. He is no longer going to be taking away touches. It is just Khalil Herbert, which, again, I'm not worried about. David Montgomery is just going to have to battle with the fact that his offensive line is not great and his quarterback is not at the level that he needs to be so far. But maybe he takes that jump this season. We'll just have to wait and see. But, I'm pretty confident that David Montgomery gets the job done. Let's see. What else do we have here? We have Amari Cooper. I don't know who's playing quarterback there. Cortland Sutton, not bad. Michael Thomas, that's the biggest question mark. I mean, I still don't know what to do with Michael Thomas. He's a very interesting prospect. I think Jerry Jeudy being taken in front of him wouldn't be crazy. What do I have so far? I've got Cook, Mixon, Montgomery, Evans, and Allen. The problem is I don't have a second quarterback. And to be honest, I'm kind of greeting by not taking a second quarterback. But again, it's best ball. So I don't really have to start anybody. It just takes the best performance. So I'm just going to keep greeting on that. And let me see. I don't even need a running back. I don't want these running backs. I think I might go with you know what? Let's take a tight end here. Let's take Dalton Schultz. I'm going to go ahead and pair him up with Dak Prescott because I honestly think it's going to be a little bit of a deadly combo. And then next round, I'll probably start picking into the wide receiver pool here. Because Jerry Jeudy got taken before me. Otherwise, I'm probably going Jeudy there. Thoughts on Deontay Johnson this year? Alec, great question. I talked about it a little bit earlier. I love Deontay Johnson. Loved him last year. I'm glad many of us went ahead and invested in him. My only concern with the one and only Deontay Johnson is that Mitchell Trubisky may hurt his overall value. Even without Juju in the lineup. I mean, we didn't have Juju in the lineup last year. Deontay Johnson, I think, had the second most targets amongst all wide receivers. Am I crazy in that stat? I'm actually curious. I got to find this. Let's see here. Who had the second most targets? I think Deontay was up there. I don't know if he was second or third, but he was certainly in that conversation. Let's see. Total targets last year. He was tied for second. There it is. That's why I was confused. He had 169 targets, tied with Devontae Adams last year. So technically, in the position that he's in, if we get to a point where Mitchell Trubisky could, I guess, give him enough value to be a viable enough option, then by all means we'll be in a great position here. But I'm just worried. I'm just worried that Mitchell Trubisky is not enough at the quarterback position. There's a reason why a couple years back, Trubisky won a couple games and then Nick Foles took over. And then Trubisky came back is because they're just not consistent enough quarterbacks regardless of what surrounds them. Now, this being said, this will be one of the better offenses, or probably the best offense that has ever surrounded Trubisky in his career. So we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of Trubisky, the quarterbacks that I was waiting on to potentially take as my second quarterbacks are all gone. So Andrew's in a little bit of trouble here. Probably this next pick, I have to take a quarterback. And yeah, I probably do because I greeted. But you know what? We live, we learn. That's the entire point of this. Another reminder for those of you who are watching, just want to go ahead and remind you, actually, where the heck is this? Let's do this really quickly. I'm going to go ahead. I want to hop back here, see if this works. I tested something earlier today. I want to see if this works. It does. So my draft can sit there. And if I do this, this might also work. It does also work. I just have to do this. Okay, cool. Awesome. I just have to make it a little bit more expanded, I think. Let's see here. Why is it doing like that? There we go. Okay. So, there we go. We're just back on this screen. I'll be drafting in a couple seconds here. Is there any quarterbacks available? Davis Mills probably be my second quarterback. I have royally messed this up, but I'm okay with it, guys. You know, I'm just trying to get a sense of where the heck players are going, when they're going, and how they're going, I guess. Let's take Davis Mills in the 8th round, whatever. I'll live with my decision. All right, so let's check out this chat here. As a Steelers fan, I draft Deontay every year, but man, look, it's tough. It's tough. I hope that whoever ends up being the quarterback, whether it is Trubisky, whether it is a quarterback that they draft, I hope they could just be decent enough to surround these players and give them value. Whether that ends up being the case is a completely different conversation. Really quickly, just want to remind all of you, yes, we are currently drafting on UnderdogFantasy.com. For those of you who are wondering, there's a link down in the description. If you go ahead and sign up today with your first deposit while using code Andrew, Underdog Fantasy is willing to match up to $100 of your first deposit. You can play in this Superflex big board draft where, again, Superflex, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, half PPR, 12 bench spots. It's a deep league. Not only are you learning about current ADPs and potentially how to draft in that regard, but you're also going ahead and, kind of getting yourself prepared for this upcoming season. On top of that, there is a rookies and sophomores draft that we will be participating in just a little bit. You guys might need to go ahead and throw in your 2 cents as to who the heck we're going after, because it's very interesting that they're putting out a draft even when those rookies for this upcoming season aren't taken. So it's a matter of who you think, regardless of where they're going, talent is going to always shine through. And that, that's always something that you always have to keep your eye on, per se. Brandon Cooks going in the 9th round. Brandon Cooks, I've heard a couple rumblings that there have been a couple phone calls out to the Houston Texans. Wherever Brandon Cooks goes, he is a top 20 wide receiver regardless. Without a doubt in my mind. I mean, this man has played with the legends of the game. I mean, he's played with Brady and Brees. He's had himself a great career thus far. But, I mean, regardless of playing with Goff, Watson, Mills, he's just been insane. He's been such a great overall player. Looking at running back, not too interested. I kind of want to go wide receiver, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Adam Thielen on the board is immediately caught my eye in that regard. Robert Woods a little bit lower down. Yeah, I'm an Adam Thielen believer. I preach the word of Adam Thielen at all times of the day. Let's see. Is there any questions that I missed up above? Oh, here we go. Thoughts on Travis Etn. Where should he be drafted? Okay, so Travis Etn last season, before the season even began, had a season-ending Liz Frank injury, if I'm not mistaken. Fractured foot, bada boom, done. Pretty severe injury. That being said, he should be good to go going into this upcoming season. The question is whether or not James Robinson, on the other hand, will be present. If James Robinson is not present going to this upcoming season, Travis Etn very easily in that conversation of a high-end, probably RB2 conversation, mainly because of the offense. That is a look at these comments. All right, cool, dude. I don't know why it wants me to hide it, but all right, cool. Appreciate it. Hot Juice, Omega Lol. Who else is coming off the board here? We got Hawkinson coming off the board here. Where am I selecting? I'm not until a little bit later. The running back position, probably I can add another piece here. I for sure have to draft Alexander Madison later on, but I'll look towards wide receiver. Drake London's here. A lot of these rookies. Crazy guys. But anyway, in regards to Travis Etn, because Doug Peterson is now the head coach of that offense, and we know he is an offensive-minded head coach at that, if you go back and look at what the Philadelphia Eagles did from like 2017 through 2020 during his tenure with the Eagles, or 2016, I think, maybe in 2016, they ran the ball more than just about anybody in the league. They're a team that wants to continue to run the ball. They went ahead and they signed Brandon Sheriff of the Washington Commanders, add him to their offensive line, made a couple improvements here and there. I think Travis Etn could be in a very good conversation for, being a stud running back. Again, let's not forget him and Trevor Lawrence, former, college teammates, guys that have a rapport, regardless of, what has happened this last season. They're still going to have that connection, and being able to throw the ball out of the backfield to Travis Etn could present a lot of value for him in fantasy. So we're hoping that there's a, potential upside there. I've been fading Brandon Cooks. It's for no reason. Listen, I'm telling you, Brandon Cooks is insanity. He's just so damn consistent. Like, it doesn't even matter if we talk about his time with Houston or his time with New Orleans and New England. He's been the same level of consistency when given ample opportunity. When you give that man 7, 8, 9 targets in a game, especially considering, at times he's been the number one receiving option of those teams, by all means, he's just like, he'll get you 14, 15 fantasy points when given said opportunity. And he'll do it often. And if Davis Mills is going to be the guy and he's not going to be moved this offseason prior to the season beginning, he's going to be in a good position there. Really good position. All right, let's see here. We got a couple wide receivers here. We've taken, again, a pretty good picking of wide receivers and running backs. Obviously, we took a little bit of a discount at quarterback, to say the least. I don't think there's any more quarterbacks. I guess Drew Lock could be taken. Jimmy Garoppolo, if somebody wants to trade for him. I'm just scrolling down, just trying to see what is even available here. I'll probably end up just taking Michael Gallup. You know what? I really like Robert Woods, but yeah, you know what? Let's take Robert Woods. You know me. I'm a Rams guy. I'm always going to go with my Robert Woods. That's just how it works. Okay, let's see here. Thoughts on Gronk this year, assuming he comes back? If he comes back, he should be a top 12 tight end. He should be treated as such. He'll probably be towards the middle of the pack. So he could very easily end as the number 9 tight end this season, with most likely, like, I don't know, 50 receptions, 600, 700, 800 yards, 7, 8 touchdowns. He can very easily do that. But, we'll just have to wait and see if he's ready to go. Zach Ertz coming off the board, another one of those great overall positions. Again, Zach Ertz, let's not forget, he's got one of the best tight end performances of all time, and he plays on an offense that just got rid of AJ Green, just got rid of Chase Edmonds, and just got rid of Christian Kirk. So besides DeAndre Hopkins and maybe Rondale Moore, who obviously wasn't utilized much last year, the next receiving option is going to be Zach Ertz, who has proven when you give him the opportunity, he's going to deliver a great performance overall. Let's see here. Is Lance taken? Yeah. This is for those of you who just came in or weren't paying attention a little bit earlier, this is a Superflex draft. So there's 2 quarterbacks that you can start on your respective team. Again, this is a best ball. The theory, or not the theory, but the rules around best ball is you don't even have to set your weekly lineups. It'll take the best performing players and will week by week total your team and see who wins by the end. But overall, yes, Lance was taken relatively early, if I'm not mistaken, too. If I scroll back to the early rounds, Trey Lance was a 3rd round pick. So he went probably the 14th. No, is he the 14th? Yeah, I think he may be the 14th quarterback off the board, which, is it a surprise? Not really, to be honest. I think it's kind of normal. All right, so any quarterbacks that I want here? No. Any running backs that I want? Interesting roundabout here. We can go wide receiver. I kind of want to just grab a running back and just hope. I think what I'm going to do is we're going to take Miles Sanders and we're just going to hope. We'll just hope. Maybe he pans out. He doesn't, so be it. This draft with Davis Mills as my second quarterback, not the greatest. I'm sure you guys could do better. You go ahead, draft a quarterback a little bit earlier instead of going for an extra mix in the third round. Maybe should have taken a quarterback. But, hey, you know what? I'm not bothered by it. It's not too big of a deal. Okay, let's go back to this chat here. What are we saying here? Jags have 20 wide receivers. They do. They really do. They signed everyone. I think they got Zay Jones. They got Christian Kirk. They want to get rid of Laviska Shenault, but I don't know if they're going to do so. They still have Marvin Jones. I think they still have a bunch of guys that, I don't know. Let's think about it. Regardless of who they have a wide receiver, I don't truly think there's going to be a wide receiver on that team that I'm excited about. Because anything that I've seen with Doug Peterson over the years has kind of led me to believe that, the wide receiver position is not what he wants to feed the ball to. Doug Peterson led offenses back in the days of Philly. Zach Ertz. Feed the tight end the ball, run the ball behind a great offensive line, and then throw the ball to the occasional Alshon Jeffrey, if you guys remember back in the day. So, that was just a couple years ago, but still, that's what I remember. Now, if they don't re-emulate that, I'll be surprised, considering I don't think coaches often sway away from their specific style. Obviously, they adapt, but they don't leave their style too often. Let's see here. Just thought folks might have not heard of Jimmy G news. What's the Jimmy G news? Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, that he hasn't been traded. Yeah, no. Look, I'm playing with a bunch of people in here. I was the last one into this draft, so everybody was ready to go. I'm sure these people have drafted a boatload of times. This is my first draft doing the Superflex. Pretty fun so far. I'm enjoying it. Let's see. What's another question here? Do you think Julio is going to get another chance at wide receiver? Being a wide receiver 1 or 2? Yes. If, in fact, the rumors that are swirling, now this may just be like people trying to wish it into existence. If it is, it is. But if it's true that he ends up potentially signing with the Indianapolis Colts, him and Matt Ryan would be a very dynamic duo that I'd be interested and intrigued in potentially seeing how they produce. Is he going to be on my team? That's a different conversation. I guess here's the thing. When you draft players like Julio, especially after last year, or maybe the last 2 seasons, you are knowingly taking a player that can miss a week that turns into missing 5 weeks to end up missing 12 weeks out of the year. It's like drafting Raheem Mostert, right here. Raheem Mostert, let me switch screens real quick, because this kind of makes, the entire point of this. Raheem Mostert above me right here was just drafted. When you draft Raheem Mostert, you implicitly are agreeing and signing to the terms of service that maybe, just maybe, he injures himself in week 1 and he's done. That's just the way it is. And if that's going to be the case, you already know that there's a potential for that. So, you just got to ride with it. Let's see here. What else is going on here? Who the heck is William Fuller? Is that supposed to be Will Fuller? Oh, it is. Why'd they call him William? That's interesting. I'm going to take Ronald Jones. I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here. Maybe the Kansas City Chiefs want to feed him the ball. I don't know. We'll see. Just want to stack up on some running backs just in case. It's basketball, whatever. Going back to this chat here. We'll go back to the other screen in a bit. I have the chat up in front of me. But yeah, if he ends up going to Indianapolis, could be nice. Feeling nervous about receivers this year. It doesn't look deep. To be honest, I think the wide receiver position has always been deep. There is a lot of talent. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand the hesitancy because there's been a lot of movement around the National Football League. So at this point, there's a potential in which maybe, just maybe, we get into a scenario in which the wide receiver position isn't as solidified. There's a lot of players that are question marks, but I still think there's a lot of depth to be had there, especially in a 12-team league. Half PPR, 1 quarterback, you can still get a lot of value in the 6th, 7th round, maybe even 8th round at wide receiver, for sure. These guys are not going to be like weekly starters, but if, for example, by the 7th round, I have 3 wide receivers and I can only start 2 in my lineup, and one of them is going to potentially be my flex, at least I have the ability to shuffle them around and see what comes of it. But yeah, can we do a mock draft right now? What do you mean by that, Brandon? I'm pretty much doing a live draft. So we could end up doing a couple underdog drafts. If you guys want to join me, there's ways for me to create private lobbies, and you guys can join and draft against me if that's what you're interested in doing. Don says, yes, like Saquon. Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree, Don. Saquon is the same way. When you select him, you're signing the terms of service that if Saquon Barkley is to be a bum because the New York Giants, just aren't good enough to get him the ball, and he's just not, what he used to be, you got to live with that, and it's tough. So realistically, how fast do you think Debo, Kupp, Chase come off the board? Debo, Kupp, Chase. I think Kupp and Chase probably are gone by early second round. I think that's pretty basic. Okay, let's see here. What do we got going around? Okay, yeah, I'm not really worried about quarterback. I think I'm pretty much not worried about that in this current position. At tight end, where do we got? We got a lot of good talent here. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on the Hunter Henry train and just hope that the touchdowns keep flowing next year. David Njoku, if Watson is actually playing, David Njoku's a force to be reckoned with. All right, let me get back to this chat here. So, okay, look, I think Kupp is probably gone in the middle of the first round. I think Jamar Chase is gone at the end of the first, beginning of the second. Like beginning of the second as in like the first 4 picks of the second, at very latest, I think. And then after that, Deebo Samuel's probably mid to late second round. The reason why Deebo has kind of fallen out of favor is mainly because people don't know if they're going to continue to use him like that. I think they will. I think people are kind of overlooking his potential, but I mean, regression is probably likely. It's very difficult to rush for that many rushing touchdowns. I know he's a very talented running back, and his ability to just find open, ground and hit a hole, and he's a bigger receiving option. His ability just kind of trumps everything that's out there in terms of metrics, but he's doing what he's doing. Transmit says, I'm guessing it's another year of trying to figure out who the wide receiver one for the New York Giants is, or is Kadarius Toney. You know what? Okay. Here's a good thing. I am optimistic because I always want to be. I'm optimistic at the potential of what the Giants could be potentially, mainly because of who their head coach is. Brian Daboll, former offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, the guy that is probably, besides Josh Allen himself, is most responsible for helping Josh Allen get to the level that he's currently at. I think Daboll really does give the potential for Daniel Jones to take that next step. Now, is there another step for him to take that's not backwards? I don't know. Maybe he just continues to regress, and if that's going to be the case, so be it. But for right now, I'm sitting in a position thinking to myself, hopefully it's Kenny G. If not, yeah, it's probably going to end up being Kadarius Toney because, he is a Swiss Army knife of sorts. And if you can get him the ball, could be very exciting. I'm going to go ahead and take Chris Carson here. I'm just going like crazy on receivers. I mean, on running backs. But to be honest, the running back position, especially in a best ball league, it's the one that sees injuries most often. So if my team is going to get injured, I probably want to have running backs just in case. Now, of course, I'm signing the idea that if Chris Carson gets hurt and he's out for the season, so be it. Rashad Penny takes over, but you never know. We'll see. Let's see here. Where are we at? Keith says, I'm pretty disappointed at Darren Waller last year. You still have faith? No, I absolutely do. To give you some, I guess, semblance of mind, just to make you feel like your decision of drafting him last year wasn't actually a bad one. Prior to him going down with an injury, I think it was Thursday, Thanksgiving Day against the Dallas Cowboys. That's when he got injured. That's when Hunter Renfrow had an incredible game. Prior to that injury, he was actually on pace for having a better season than 2020. Unfortunately, obviously, the injury led it astray. So it's tough to see him not have a great year last year, but it was due to injury, and that's something that we really can't predict happening. If they use Debo in the same way that they did last year, will get hurt early this year. I try not to think about injuries. Again, I'm hoping that every NFL prospect always stays healthy. I want every fantasy team to be at its all-time best. Obviously, this is something that is unrealistic. Injuries happen. It's the nature of the sport. But, I'm hoping that Deebo Samuel takes care of his body and is ready to go and doesn't sustain anything that slows him down. I hope he has another incredible season. Don says Chris Carson is really headed to the best season of his life, but as usual, yeah. Listen, Chris Carson is a very interesting prospect. He's great when he's on the field, but when he's hurt, and he's hurt often, he's a nightmare. But at least, for those of you who picked up, Rashad Penny last year, you were kind of rewarded for his overall upside. Rashad Penny just took over. The last, I would say, 4 weeks of the season, he was, number 1 or 2 running back overall, just dominating week in and week out. I mean, especially when those last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, Jonathan Taylor started to dip off. Teams that had Rashad Penny were just winning outright because of his contribution. Do I want to take another tight end here? Evan Ingram, Gerald. Nope. I'll wait on that. We can wait a little bit there. Okay. Very interesting positions here. What in the heck do we have here? We got a bunch of players, but nothing that's nothing that's exciting. I'm going to take Jarvis Landry. Hope he signs with a team that actually, maybe like the Colts, that'll actually get him the ball, but we'll see. Okie dokie. Let's see what we got. All right. So really quickly, what round are we in and how many rounds are remaining? I believe there are a couple more rounds left. What I'm going to go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and hop back to this screen. I'll go ahead and bring this down and see if I can actually, I'm curious for those of you, again, if you guys haven't checked out Underdog Fantasy, I implore you to do so. If you go ahead and sign up today with the link down in the description or by using promo code Andrew, Underdog Fantasy is willing to match up to $100 of your first deposit, whether it is iOS, Android, on your computer, laptop. You can sign up today and start playing Underdog Fantasy, whether it is, playing fantasy football or basketball, baseball, college basketball, which is insanity, esports. There's a bunch of things. So again, if you're interested, mock drafting this off season as we approach the 2022 season, and getting yourself into conversations of live mock drafts. I mean, again, I went against 11 other people there, and they obviously were knowing what they were doing, and there's a prize pool to it. So yes, there's a payment in $10 to get into these tournaments. Specifically, if I show you on screen again, if you're at the main page of Underdog Fantasy, if you're at the home and you scroll over to the right, it's the big board Superflex, and then there's the rookies versus sophomores. Again, the rookies versus sophomores, something that we might end up doing a little bit later. It's a giant prize pool, but you're drafting a lot of players that are just purely guys that were rookies last year and to be rookies this upcoming season. 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, and a flex, 7 bench spots. So if you have an inside track as to where these potential rookies that are coming up, Hall or, Olave, there's a bunch of studs that are coming out in this draft. If you think that they are going to perform at a higher level, you might be able to go and grab them and find success with them respectively. Let's go ahead. Let me go back to the chat. Mike Williams bounce back season. You know what? To be honest, that's an interesting way of saying that, Transmit, because bounce back season would imply that Mike Williams didn't have a good season, but in reality, he did have a good season by all metrics, but his consistency was his problem. With Justin Herbert only getting better, I think Mike Williams is certainly going to be in that conversation of being a top 20 wide receiver. Certainly. Considering the offenses that he is associated with, he's going to have immense value. But he's not going to have a bounce back season. He's just going to have maybe a similar season, and that's what we're hoping for. Hopefully it's more spread out. Maybe he doesn't, have all of his good games in the first month of the year and then disappear for the next 8. But, we'll just have to the hope for the best. Laviska Shenault. I saw Laviska Shenault and got tickled because we really fell for the hype. Yeah, listen, I mean, there was a lot of hype around that offense. Obviously, there was a lot of dysfunction in that team. The Jaguars themselves, with Urban Meyer as their leader, quote unquote, man, it was a mess. No one really kind of anticipated that chaos. Ryan says, do you think Gabriel Davis is a wide receiver 3 for the Bills? I do. I do think so. I think he's going to be a great overall player, and I'll tell you why. No Cole Beasley, no Emmanuel Sanders. With those 2 guys out, it presents a lot of opportunity for Gabriel Davis to be that number 2 wide receiver on the outside. Now, if we'll talk about this as the offseason progresses. I have a lot of content to come in coming months. Trust me, the reason why you guys haven't seen me for so long is I've been preparing. I mean, that's literally what the offseason is. Find the stats, figure out who's the best player, rank it accordingly, understand when to draft players, and give you guys the best information I possibly can on a weekly basis. That's really what it is. So yes, I really do think Gabriel Davis can be a great option for that offense based on how effective they are down in the red zone, how great Josh Allen's been, and the fact that outside of Stephon Diggs and really Dawson Knox, I don't think Isaiah McKenzie's going to be, 100+ target Cole Beasley status, which leads me to believe that Gabriel Davis should be in a great position. I mean, at the end of the 2021 season, and even at the end of the 2020 season, when other wide receivers have gone down with injuries, he has stepped up and he has played very well. And obviously, the last time we saw him, he went for 4 touchdowns and 200 receiving yards in that divisional game against the Chiefs. Quite impressive, to say the very least, and hopefully that'll continue to build upon that. Sure, it's a fluke, but it is what it is. Chaos Lord, nice to see you. A definite member of the community. I've seen you for a while here. Says, Andrew, the mother effing go. I appreciate that. Knox or Gronk? Ooh, good question. Knox or Gronk? I'm a little hesitant on Dawson Knox. I'll tell you why. Dawson Knox is one of 7 wide receivers in the past decade that has finished a season as a tight end 1, which means as a respectively in terms of overall tight end points in the top 12 of his position ranked. My concern is that he's one of only 7 receivers that has had, like, what's the metric? Let me see if I can find it. I think it's like less than a specific amount of receptions. Where is it? I have so many stats in my head, I just forget them all the time, guys. Let's find it. Where's my number here? So Dawson Knox had 49 receptions last year. Okay, this is the stat. He's one of only 7 tight ends in the last decade that have finished as a top 12 tight end with less than 73 total targets. Tight ends from the 2020 season who exactly did that was Jonnu Smith, who disappeared in 2021, and then Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers, who tore his ACL midway through the season, but prior to even the injury, wasn't being utilized much. I'm just afraid that maybe the opportunity to touchdown ratio is enough. I mean, the guy was scoring a touchdown once every 5 targets. That is insanity to me, right? That kind of number is very difficult to, recreate. So maybe, just maybe, he can continue with that success, or maybe just Gronk's going to be better because there is no AB. And, if Godwin is slow to come back from his injury and Gronk is ready to go, we know that connection, Brady and Gronk, one of the best duos to ever do it. Could be great. Colton says, yo, just smashing the like button and dipping out. I'll be locking in. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Nice to see you, Colton. Let's see here. Ryan says Gronk has injuries. Yeah, I mean, listen, Gronk will always have the injuries looming. He's an older player. He's already once retired. But we just got to hope. Chris Brewer, earlier in this thing that I missed, said, who's your top 3 running backs? I think right now it's somewhere in the combination. I'll give you 4. Taylor, Henry, Eckler, McCaffrey. Those are guys that probably should be taken off the board first at running back. And I understand there's some hesitation with McCaffrey, but still he's talented. There's no AB. You just jinxed it. What do you mean? There's no Antonio Brown. He's not on the team. Without Antonio Brown there, that's a lot of vacant targets that, will go elsewhere, purely. Bill's going to win the Super Bowl. To be honest, I wouldn't mind that. They got a talented team, and I'm hoping for, somebody new to win it every year. I mean, as much as dynasties are cool, I mean, look, I'm a Rams fan. I'm extremely ecstatic about, how we ended up closing out the season. But, the likelihood of going back-to-back is it's almost impossible. It really is. So it's really tough out there. I don't know. When was the last team that actually went back-to-back? Must have been a Patriots team. Outlook on Godwin coming off the injury with no AB. Listen, Godwin prior to his injury without AB was like averaging 12 targets per game. The dude was unbelievable. And we know Brady and his slot receivers, they got a connection. Edelman of the past, Welker of the past. It's going to be there again. If Godwin is ready to go, number 14 is going to be catching a lot of balls this year from number 12, and he's going to be going, off. So is Mike Evans. So is Leonard Fournette. Gronk obviously is the toss-up because of his injury history. But I think that the fact that Brady's coming back, it makes me really happy. I understand people don't like Brady because of the success he's had, but I purely do think he makes the fantasy football landscape that much more exciting because you will allow more prospects to be viable. And I'm always for that. Do you like Von Miller to the Bills? Yeah, look, if I didn't think that Von Miller was that good for us, the Los Angeles Rams, I watched a lot of those games. I don't know how much he really made a difference in comparison to somebody else that you can get for relatively cheaper. I think the Bills will be happy to have him. Outside of I think Jerry Hughes has been their stud defensive end for the last couple of years. They've spent a couple of draft picks on defensive line. I think he's a great leader. He'll serve that defense well, and he's a premier pass rusher. So if he can get to the quarterback and do work, they'll be good to go. I'm just happy that with him leaving, we were able to get Wagner. And we were able to afford to move Robert Woods, which I hated. I admittedly did not like that. But at least we got Allen Robinson. So we improved somewhat. Which, again, it happens. Sean McVay gives these wide receivers huge contracts and 2 years later trades them, right? He did that with Brandon Cooks. He's now done that with Robert Woods. And it sucks, but it is what it is. But, hey, I'll take Wagner, man. It's nuts. Rams are stacking up to have a big year. Yeah, look, the Seahawks are no longer much of a threat in the division. The 49ers may not be at their same level considering Trey Lance there. Maybe they're better. I don't know. And then the Arizona Cardinals, they're still trying to figure it out after having a one-and-done playoff season. So I think the Rams, they have a great chance, and I'm hoping that they'll just continue to ball out. All right, so what I wanted to go ahead and do, what was this? Don says, I'm shocked, Andrew. Didn't name Najee in that list of top 4. Yeah, I don't believe Najee Harris is a top 4 running back in this year's fantasy. I think he might be 5 or 6 or in that conversation. But it's just a matter of, can Mitchell Trubisky get him the ball? Because let's not forget, Ben Roethlisberger last year, his arm did not allow him to throw the ball very deep at all. So he and the offensive line, guys, it's not great in Pittsburgh. So he had to check the ball down a bunch. If you guys remember that game, Najee Harris had 19 targets, 14 receptions. Najee Harris, if he's able to produce similar receiving numbers that he did last year, by all means, he'll be a top 5 running back. It's not even close. But again, the offensive line concerns me, the quarterback concerns me. When we talk about our running backs' overall potential, those are the two things that could impede upon their success. And that is what, is a little worrisome. And I don't like Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator for the Steelers, not somebody that I'm excited about per se. All right, so let's see here. Okay, I wanted to ask a question. Anybody in the chat at this current moment in time want to draft against me? There are ways to go ahead and set up a private draft. So we could potentially go up to 6 people, $3 entry. Wait, this is basketball. I'm sorry. If I go to the football tab, wait. Let me see what it is. We can go up to 12 people, actually, theoretically. And it'd be a $3 entry from everybody. If you guys want, I can create a private draft. If we can get up to that many people, let me know in the chat if you guys are interested. Otherwise, we can do a 3-person draft or 6. If you guys don't want to, no problem. Just want to throw it out there. If those of you who want, go ahead and draft beside me and kind of compete. If that's something you're interested in, please let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and hop into one of those rookie sophomore drafts and see what we can come up with there. A couple more questions in the draft or in the chat, excuse me. Hayden, Canada can go. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think Matt Canada is great for that offense. Burrow or Brady? That's a great question. If Brady is anything close to what he was last season, and what I mean by that, if Brady is going to go ahead and put up numbers that are just that a 44-year-old man at the quarterback position shouldn't be able to do, if he's just going to continue, which by all means he should, he's just that good, and we really, I'm not going to complain about it. I think it would be very difficult for Joe Burrow to catch him, but you never know. I mean, like let's be honest. I think the stat was Tom Brady threw more passing yards than he has in his entire career last year, had the most passing attempts outside of the 1 year that he had 50 passing touchdowns. I mean, 43 passing touchdowns last year, 45 total. Tom Brady is a top 5 quarterback in fantasy. I do believe so. I think he's probably closer to 5 for me because I do love my quarterbacks to have rushing upside. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, those guys with rushing ability. Patrick Mahomes, I'm beginning to almost like fade in my mind, but hopefully not, man. I mean, I think he's a great talent. I just hope that they can find another receiver to put beside him, I think losing Tyreek Hill is a huge loss for him. Keith says he's in. Okay, cool. Honestly, we just need one more. If we can get one more person to say they're in, I'll go ahead and send the link into the chat. I mean, honestly, maybe I'll just go ahead and make this. So let's go ahead. Let's create a private. It says automatically be entered in the draft. Okay, cool. So I'll go ahead and make this. And then I'll go ahead and copy the link and then go to our chat here and paste it. So if you want to join, you absolutely can. I don't need notifications on. So I'm just waiting. If you guys would like, it's a quick little entry, $3 entry. We draft against me. It's a 3-team draft. Basically for this upcoming season, draft the best players you can and compete and just have fun. For those of you interested, I'll have this down here. I know Keith was interested again. Just a reminder for those of you guys, if you want to go ahead and sign up today, there's a link down in the description. It's the first line of the description. If you go ahead, sign up today using promo code Andrew at underdogfantasy.com. Underdog is Underdog is willing to match up to $100 of your first deposit. Again, if you drop 100, they'll go ahead and match 100. You can draft via your phone. You can go ahead and draft via your laptop. It's up to you. For those of you interested, it's out there. We'll go ahead and wait, see if we can get a third man to fill this up. Okay. Isaac, what's up? Nice to see you. Glad you can make it. Brian says, being a Raider fan, I'm happy they traded Hill. Yeah, you should absolutely. I mean, look, here's the thing, though. The Raiders are, they're going to be a threat regardless. But yes, it certainly does help considering, I think in the oh, nice, it filled up. Cool. Glad you guys could join. The Raiders, if I'm not mistaken, they've lost to what's it called? They've lost to the Chiefs 5 out of the last 6 games, or is it more? Maybe it's 6 out of the last 6. All I know is that Patrick Mahomes goes off against that defense. So it's just, yeah, not having to go against Tyreek Hill, certainly a benefit. I'm going to go ahead and change screens here. We have Keith Pasco, who's in the chat, that hopped in here. And then we have Serge over here that's ready to go. Or Seb. Sorry. I thought the B was an R. I'm pretty far from my monitor, so forgive me. All right. So obviously I will try not to tell you guys who I'm going to pick so you guys don't snipe me, but this should be fun. Going to enjoy this. What's the scoring for this draft again? If I'm not mistaken, we can go ahead and check. So on screen, if I move my camera really quickly, you can go ahead and check that out. So this is a $3 entry, 3-person team. It's half point per reception, 6 point per, yeah. So basically it's a half point per reception. The rosters are 12 bench, 1 quarterback starting, 1 flex, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end. So half PPR. So, just a normal draft. We should be good to go. The draft has already begun. Very cool. I'll go ahead and lock my camera there, and then we'll see what happens here. This is going to be fun. I actually do like having the 3rd pick because I think grabbing 2 studs at the running back position should be fun. Cup. Oh my God. Cup, huh? Okay. I'm going to do myself a favor. I'm going to take Derrick Henry, and then instead of risking it for the quote-unquote biscuit with Christian McCaffrey, I'm just going to take Austin Eckler. I don't want to risk it. You can have Christian McCaffrey. You know what? I'll just go ahead. I'll take my Derrick Henry and my Austin Eckler, and I'll be ecstatic about it. Now, let's go to the chat, see if anybody's got any other questions. Yeah, they have the Raiders number. I think 5 out of the last 6. Yeah, but potentially. I think, yeah, the Raiders are an interesting scenario. I mean, the fact that they were able to land Chandler Jones, not really a surprise. I mean, Chandler Jones was a former Patriot. The fact that he goes to a Josh McDaniels, which is pretty much a branch of the Patriots, team, it makes sense. It makes sense. And then, man, that offense is looking exciting. It's looking exciting. Just got to have that offensive line, keep it together. A lot of faith in King Henry, I see. Yeah, listen, I love me some Henry. The fact that the Tennessee Titans, I think since 2018, they have led all teams in the National Football League in running back rushing attempts. That itself gives me enough confidence to where I'm like, yeah, you know what? Derrick Henry's probably going to continue to be fed the rock. Just want to check something. So I can get 1 flex here, but I already really have 2 stud tight ends. So I've got to probably build on, wow, Najee Harris. I mean, listen, guys, if Najee Harris is here, I might scoop that up. And then go ahead and take oh my, look at this draft. This is what's fun, right? Being able to draft and just have studs across the board, that is pretty damn fun. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'm just going to, I'll take the Deebo Samuel risk here. But I'll go ahead and take, oh man, do I want to take Najee Harris over Dalvin and Joe Mixon? I'll just take him, whatever. We're having fun here. This is enjoyable. I got my 3 studs. I got my 2 running back starts and my flex. Now I got Deebo at wide receiver. The question is, when does the first tight end come off the board? There's only 3 of us, right? So there's not really a need for 2 stud tight ends, but at least 1, right? And everybody will get 1, so it's not really a big deal. All right, let's go ahead. Let me hop back to the chat here. Yeah, I could have taken Adams. I mean, to be honest, I'm not against it. I just don't. It's the unknown that scares me. He's a stud receiver, but he doesn't have Rodgers. But he does have a rapport from college at Fresno State with Derek Carr. There's like so many variables that you have to keep in mind. It's just like, it's too much. It's tough. Either way, it should be fun. Keith takes Mr. Kelsey there and Devontae Adams. That's a great combo there. Good to see. Let's see what Seb does here. Again, a lot of studs still available on the board. We got studs here. Yeah, I mean, monsters across the board to say the very least. So what I'll go ahead and do, considering, yeah, we're in a pretty good position here. What are we in the 6th round? I'm going to do something a little bit crazy. I'm taking Josh Allen because I do think he's just head over heels better than everybody else. And then I already got myself a lot of good running back depth. I don't think I need any more per se. Am I taking Tyreek Hill above Stephon Diggs? Probably not. I'll take my Stephon Diggs just to be, again, another safe one per se. But again, my mind could change in the future. I could feel more risky. It just depends. The Bearded Bandit is back. Thank you, Evan. I see you. Glad you could stop on by. Yes, Don, I took Najee Harris for you. I mean, listen, we're having fun. It's nothing too crazy. Look, this is why I like doing this. Like being able to draft on Underdog, it just gives us, more exposure to just fantasy football, and that's what we want to do all season long. I mean, if fantasy football was all season long, it would be crazy. I would burn out so quickly, but I've had a couple months off, been able to refresh, and we're in a position where we're pretty comfortable here. All right, let's see here. Tyreek Hill taken after that. I grabbed myself a quarterback, which may end up, being a bad decision in the end, but I mean, you never know. I mean, it's just like all these guys are studs. You're pretty much drafting like a AFC versus NFC Pro Bowl team against one another, so it's just all gonna be fun regardless. All right, let's see here. What else could we draft? Okay, so I think what I want to do is grab Swift because I'm just kind of crazy for Swift right now. Just to like grab the fourth best, or my fourth running back at this moment. I think tight end's pretty solidified. Mark Andrews taking, I think because these two other guys have taken their respective tight ends, kind of gives me the chance to just kind of branch out and test the waters per se here with these wide receivers. I'm going to go ahead and take CeeDee Lamb, no Amari Cooper. Hopefully he'll get more targets this season. Hopefully. I mean, last year he got targets, but the completion percentage was not great between him and Dak Prescott, which was unfortunate, but it is what it is. Kelsey, Mahomes are my favorite stacks so far. Eckler and Herbert. Yeah, Eckler and Herbert is always going to be great. It's just going to be tough to get that. Depends where you draft, right? Because Eckler, you're going to have to be in that top 5-6 range of the overall picks to get him in the first place, maybe even top 3 or 4. And then hoping that Justin Herbert is at the position, whether it be in the 5th, 6th, maybe even 4th round, to where you can get him and then not miss out on other potential depth. That's the tricky part. By the way, Jalen Waddle coming off the board. I think Jalen Waddle, regardless of the fact that Tyreek Hill is there, is going to be uneffing believable. Him and Tua have already got that relationship on another level. So, man, imagine how far Alvin Kamara has fallen that he just is almost forgotten about. It's crazy. It really is, but it is what it is. All right, so we have Alvin Kamara taken there, Keenan Allen, blah, blah, blah. Tight end, I'm not too worried about it. I think I just want to go ahead and, like, take stabs in the dark at receiver. Like, I don't know what it is. I just really like Mike Evans. I'll even reach for him. I just like the guys that I like. It is what it is. I don't know. I can't change my mind on it. As for who else I'll go for here, there's a lot of stud running backs. A lot of stud there. I don't need that. So we'll go ahead and we'll take T. Higgins as well. Because I think T. Higgins is going to just continue to expand upon his season. I mean, after T. Higgins came back from his injury, I think it was like week 6 he came back last year. The dude was a unbelievable overall wide receiver prospect. I mean, yes, he had I think it was like a 35-point game in like the fantasy playoff like semifinals or championship, some crazy week. So obviously there's a little bit of, a couple performances that lift his overall points per game average, but I think just the opportunity and the talent, it's hard to pass up on in that regard. Okay, let's see here. Do you think the Steelers are better with Mitch or drafting Willis? I think it's in the best interest of the Pittsburgh Steelers to, if in fact they're going to draft a quarterback, just let him start off the rip and just let him have those bad games, which sucks for fantasy, but are they better with Mitch or a rookie? I think they're probably better off with Mitch just because he has experience, purely. And it will be, it'll be a bumpy ride, but it is what it is. Yes, Higgins over D-Hop. Yeah, I know. D-Hop, it's more of a, I don't know how to explain the D-Hop scenario. All right, so now that this has happened, I'm going to go ahead. Do I want it? Yeah, you know what? Let's just take Waller just in case somebody else wants to go and scoop. And then I think I want to take a second quarterback. How many do I have? I have everybody. Okay, so I want to take another quarterback that I'm like super confident in. Based on what everything has happened so far coming off the board. Okay, you know what? I'll wait. I think I can wait. We'll just take Aaron Jones here. The all-star team. Look at this. It's just crazy. Okay, anyway, I got sidetracked there. Someone was saying T. Higgins over Diop. Yeah. So DeAndre Hopkins, yes, he will not have to compete with Christian Kirk and AJ Green. I just don't know what it is. I can't get myself to draft him. Maybe I'm just psyching myself out. Maybe it's last season's injuries that are bugging me. But again, as much of a blank slate I like to be, and as much as I don't like to have bias against players, there are just some inherent biases that I hold that I don't even know how to explain. Sometimes I'm just like, I'd just rather have T. Higgins, more exciting of a name, and I'm hoping he could just pop off. But again, DeAndre Hopkins has been one of the most consistent receivers in maybe the last decade. Besides like an Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins is in that conversation. I mean, the one season he didn't have a good year, the one season that he hasn't been a top 12 wide receiver while he's been healthy has been the one that, Brock Osweiler was his starting quarterback. So, regardless of what you put around him, he's always going to play well, which is nice, but it's tough. It's tough. It's crazy. DK Metcalf, Deontay Johnson still on the board because people don't know what to do. I'll just take DK and hope he gets traded. And then, we'll see what happens kind of thing. How many roster spots do I have remaining? I guess I'll go ahead and count it up after. I'm going to take another tight end. Do I want to take Hawkinson or do I want to take Kittle? They both have injuries. One has a new quarter. I'm going to take... no, let's just take Kittle. Let's not be stupid about it. Let's just take Kittle. Okay, let me see how many I have. I have 5 running backs. That's 6 total. And then I have 6 receivers, right? So that's 12. And then I have 14 there. How many roster spots are there? So this is 12 plus this 15 plus another 5. So 20. Okay, so I got 8 more positions to fill. Good to know. All right. I already know what second quarterback I want to take, so I guess I'll just kind of wait for it. I mean, do I need any more running backs? If I need another running back, I'm in trouble. You know what I mean? Like this is why it's just so fun. Let's see. Okay. St. Brown, Deontay Johnson. Yep, there's no problem. Barkley, kind of a mess. Antonio Gibson, people don't trust because of J.D. McKissick. J.K. Dobbins is probably a low-key stud. Zeke not being, when you're picking the best of the best, it really shows you just like the tiers of player, the level of player. And as I mentioned them, you guys take them. It's all good. All right, so what do I want to do here? I kind of just want to do what I want and just kind of go crazy with it. So what I'll do is I'm going to take Travis Etn here, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of go nuclear and just take Russell Wilson and just hope. Is it the best decision to make? I don't know. But I just kind of, I'm feeling it. Let's see what happens. Patrick Mahomes taken after, no problem. That makes sense. Crazy, crazy drafts. All right, so probably after... oh, you ran out of time, Keith? No problem, it's all good. Okay, so most likely after this draft concludes, I'll go ahead, answer a couple questions if you guys have any, and then that'll probably be it. We've been streaming for about 2 hours now. I think that's a pretty, pretty good stream so far. I mean, I could go for more, but unfortunately I have some, committed arrangements later this afternoon. We already have 2 tight ends. Probably grabbing another receiver wouldn't be a bad idea. As to who, we were talking about him earlier. Let's go ahead and, oh man, you know what? Okay, let's take the risk. Let's see if Pittman wants to do something this year. And then after that, we talked about him earlier as well. Let's see if, who else do we have? Yeah, let's see if Mr. Mike Williams wants to do something this year. So we take those 2 guys, no problem. We'll just stack up on wide receivers. Running back, there's still... What the heck is that? Okay. We're just not going to say anything. We're going to be very quiet. We're going to hope that nobody else notices what I see. This is what happens. You know what I got to do? I got to sit here for a little bit next time and rearrange the rankings as to how I see it, because there he goes. I knew Keith was going to see it. The fact that Leonard Fournette was all the way down there, dude, I thought Leonard already went. I would have taken Leonard Fournette before Swift, bro. Why is he projected so little points? That's nuts. It's actually insane to me. Holy moly, I would have taken him so long ago. I wouldn't have wasted any picks on these clowns. What are we? Okay, whatever, dude. That's why it's fun. It's all good. John, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us. I've been hearing Breece Hall is the next Najee Harris. Can't wait to draft. I mean, potentially. It just depends where he ends up. You know, Najee Harris went to a scenario where there was no running back. It was a vacancy at the position. And with that vacancy, he was able to make the most of the opportunity. James Conner coming off the board. Bro, these guys are coming off too late. Why are they ranked so low? That's actually insanity to me. Wow. Okay, so somebody earlier asked me, Andrew, is there ever a possibility where you take Zeke? And to this, I say yes right now, but only because we're literally all-star drafting, you know? As the final picks, I will just stack on running backs and just let it rip. I honestly probably shouldn't have this many running backs considering I start 3 wide receivers. I probably should have way more wide receivers, but you know what? It is what it is. I've committed to it, and I'll enjoy it. All right, so we're going to go ahead, hop on back over to this other screen. Do not be afraid of the flying ball that comes in your direction. There we go. This draft is concluded. Thank you for those of you guys who joined me. Keith and Seb, appreciate that a lot. We'll go ahead and go back again. Just a reminder for those of you who are trying to play, fantasy right now, whether it's basketball, college basketball, NHL, soccer, MMA, Underdog has got you ready to go. You can go set up pick'em slips, 20 times your overall money if you're able to pick over/under on a lot of these stats. In doing so, set yourself up for a nice payday. Again, just want to go ahead and remind you guys, if you sign up today via Underdog Fantasy, the link down in the description of the video, using promo code Andrew, ANDREW, my name, Underdog Fantasy is willing to match up to $100 of your first deposit. So go ahead and check that out. You can check out the sophomore versus rookies and rookies draft, $10 entry, or the Superflex, but the big board but Superflex draft. You can draft via your phone. They just actually updated the iOS and Android version. It's a lot more sleek, a lot more fluid, and it's only getting better. So if you want to play fantasy, play the Underdog way. Check them out. Use promo code Andrew to support me. I greatly appreciate that. All right, so now that we've drafted a couple times, enjoyed that, go ahead, answer a couple questions. Check out the chat real quick. Again, added the chat on screen today. During the regular season, it'll be tough to add the chat on screen because the chat goes really fast. But when there's, I don't know how many, I haven't even checked how many people have been here. When there's 40 people in here, it's a lot more lax. It's easier to converse, answer all the questions that comb through and roll through. Again, thank you guys for being here, supporting the channel. It's been fun. We're going to definitely be doing this more often, especially as we approach the NFL draft. I, of course, will be drafting on, not drafting. I'll probably draft a team on after the first round because I'm sure Underdog will have a couple promotions, a couple contests to join in on. But I'll certainly be live streaming for the NFL draft. I'll obviously look to try to, put out more live streams, more content as we kind of progress. Obviously, once we get to July, August, September, that's when it starts to ramp up. But it's, never too early. You want to go ahead, hop into a mock draft, practice, get yourself a couple reps before you get to your respective drafts, whether it be a redraft league or a keeper. Underdog's the way to do it for those of you guys who are interested. Certainly does help a lot. Who's your favorite rookie wide receiver draft? Okay, this is what I'll tell you. My favorite rookies will 100% be determined by where they end up. Now, obviously, there's certain guys that I just love their talent, whether it's size, speed, route running, etc., hands. Like there are certain intangibles that some of these players have that make me more excited about them. But with that being said, I just want these talented wide receivers. I want one to go to Kansas City and I want one to go to Green Bay. That's it. I don't care who. I just need these guys to be fantasy relevant, because rookies being fantasy relevant just makes the game that much more fun. Because, when people were doubting Ja'Marr Chase last offseason, oh, he dropped 7 balls in the preseason in 2 games. He's a wash. And then the guy ends up being the number 5 overall wide receiver. It's so fun. It's just awesome, So I always want rookies to perform well, but I also want them to end up in places where they're going to be given said opportunity to perform well. I don't want a wide receiver being drafted to a team that's just stacked on receivers. I don't want a wide receiver going and having to play behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Russell Gage. I want a guy that's going to go to a team that might need a wide receiver 2 or might need a wide receiver 1, Green Bay. So that's really where I'm at right now. I'm all for just helping the fantasy landscape rather than just going after purely one person because of their talent, of what they've obviously produced in college. What do you think about the Miami Dolphins? I think what Mike McDaniel is doing down there in Miami is fantastic. The ability to go ahead, start building an offensive line, which they desperately needed, build pieces around Tua, bringing in obviously Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert. You get yourself Cedric Wilson, a slot machine from the Dallas Cowboys. You already have Jalen Waddle as a stud. You already have Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki's not a great fantasy player, but in terms of getting the ball moving down the field and giving them more opportunities to score touchdowns, sure, he'll get the job done. He's practically a wide receiver. Mike Gesicki lined up out wide or in the slot, 85% of the time plus in the last 2 seasons. So, and in the fact that they have Tyreek Hill now, I mean, the weapons that this team has is absolutely insane. So, is it up to Tua? Yeah, absolutely. Will they get the job done? We're hoping. But I think Miami's defense is already solidified. They have Xavier Howard back there. They got Byron Jones. They've got a lot of talent. They just need a little bit more direction. And I think they'll be in a pretty decent position. They're in a division where the Bills are going to be number 1, but they may be able to overthrow the Patriots. And for sure, the Jets are going to be at the bottom of the barrel there. Hitting Vegas for the draft should be fun. So yeah, that should be fun. That would, oh my God, that'd be crazy. If I wasn't live streaming, I would probably think about going out there later this month for the draft, but I'll be live streaming, so I don't want to do that from a hotel room. Thoughts on Elijah Moore? Elijah Moore is a great receiver. He definitely, produced a great amount of points in fantasy prior to his injury. With that said, I don't know if Zach Wilson is going to take that second-year step to getting Elijah Moore more involved. I'm hoping he will. I'm just a little concerned because the Jets are the Jets. And until further notice, they'll continue to be, they'll have that connotation of being a team that really you can't trust too many receiving options or running options as fantasy studs. So yes, though Elijah Moore had great games and scored touchdowns and was great, it's a little concerning because a lot of those games were with different quarterbacks. He had a couple great games with Mike White. He had a couple good games or one good game against Indianapolis with Josh Johnson. Then he had great games with Joe Flacco. And then you had, a couple games with Zach Wilson. It's a little concerning, to say the least. All right. Anyway, I want to, once again, thank you guys for supporting the channel, coming by, watching today's stream, drafting beside me. Keeping me entertained while I keep you entertained. Again, it's a two-way street, so I appreciate you guys supporting the channel here. That'll be all for today. I'll be sure to tweet it out whether I'm live. I went ahead and did that earlier today, so if you guys want to follow, there's my Twitter down in the description. I'll go ahead and post when I'm live every time. I got to be better about that. I got to post more. I can't be more of a spectator. I got to be more of a contributor over there on Twitter, dropping all the stats and knowledge that I have up in this brain. So I'll be better about that. But otherwise, if you're a part of my Discord server, there's a link down there for those of you who are interested. It's an open server. I also post there when I'm going live. So for those of you who are interested, check that out. Outside of all of that, I appreciate you guys spending your time here today. And until the next time we do this, maybe later this week, maybe next week, maybe Mondays will just be the mock draft Monday day. I don't know. We'll have to kind of wait and see. I appreciate you guys. And until next time, I'll see you. Peace.